What's up, everybody? We're here to go over UFC Vegas 84 Ankalaev versus Johnny Walker. Um, I know it's really early. I know that some of the fights, might end up getting switched around by the time it comes down to the event. But I'm bored, and I got my notes done, so far up until this point. So figured I'd go ahead and do it, get it out early. There's some lines that if y'all catch them early, you could get a pretty good price on some guys still. So I figured I'd go ahead and put it out while nobody else is doing anything. So it's going to be a mess. A lot of the fights have been rearranged and stuff like that, and a couple of opponent changes, and we lost a couple fights too. Um, but yeah, please like and subscribe, guys. It really helped me out a lot. And real quick, I'm gonna go over the results for the last two cards. Man, we ended the year off with two good cards. We had the UFC Vegas 83 card. I had three plays hit on that. I had a one unit play on. Ended up having two plays on Jalced, as you'll see in a minute. And Alan Carr should have lost that fight, but I had money on her, and the judges gave it to her, so I'm not gonna not gonna complain about that. And then I lost some value on the two fight parlay there because Nascimento didn't fight. I ended up just having a play on Tiara, which normally I would have just cashed it back out because Tiara was such a big favorite. Um, but they weren't trying to pay me my full money that I put on it to cash it out, so I wasn't going to throw away 100. I wasn't going to throw away $150 just to get my money back, to bet again. So I just left it in there. The maybe bet at the bottom, the Song and Park one, I didn't end up putting that one in. But I also had these two. These are two things that I had just kind of added later. This is how I ended up with two plays on Kevin Jalced because I had a two-team parlay with him as well with Nascimento, and Nascimento dropped out. I just left it. And then this two-fight parlay with Tim Elliott and Tatsuro Tiara, that's something I put in right before the fight started, so I didn't get a chance to post either of these ahead of time. So I showed you the tickets there, and then on uh, on the UFC 296 card, I had three plays hit, one play that didn't hit. The play that didn't hit was a really small, like $200 play on Brian Kelleher, which, yeah, I mean, Garbrandt looked great, but I still stand I still stand that I'm not going to ever put money on Cody Garbrandt again. Um, shouldn't have put money on Kelleher. He looked like crap. But oh well. I mean, I still had a plus money play on Gaziev that hit the first fight of the night as a half unit play. Had a 1 unit play on Leon Edwards. I ended up having 2 units on just Rachmanov before it was a Ian Gary and Rachmanov parlay. So I lost a lot of value on that, but still made some money on it and ended up coming out pretty good for the card. To end the year and everything. So um, where was I at? So please like and subscribe. If you're new to the channel, what I do is I go through and I give out all my picks for each of the fights, and then at the end of the video, I give out my bets. Um, and if you're not interested in watching my videos, you just want to see my picks and my bets, you could go to my social medias. High kick_fight picks is my Instagram and TikTok, and then there's a Facebook group, High Kick Fight Picks on Facebook. It's easy to find. And also, this show is available on Spotify, Pandora, Rumble, all your major streaming platforms as well. So yeah, man, this is a pretty good card, man. Hopefully, we don't lose too many more fights on this card. We already lost Yana Santos versus Norma Dumont. Um, I don't know if they're going to find Dumont a replacement or not yet. And Felipe Buenas and Dennis Bondar, that fight got canceled. Bondar is being replaced with Joshua Van on short notice. And what else, man? What else? Preston Parsons' opponent got changed. He's now fighting Matthew Semelsberger. And but yeah, man, let's get into this card. Sorry if I Sorry if a lot of stuff ends up getting changed, man. I just wanted to get this video out because I've been sitting around not doing nothing for a week. So, first up, we got Tom Nolan taking on Nicholas Motta. Tom Nolan he's 23 years old. He's 6'3" with a 76-inch reach. He is 6-0, and this is going to be his UFC debut. And he's a minus 240, I believe, right now. Um, and He's got 4 wins by knockout, no wins or losses by submission. He's undefeated. Coming off an easy win on the Contender Series against a guy who was 11-0. He went 6-1-1 as an amateur as well, so not as inexperienced as his record might indicate. This guy is, he's a huge, tall, long, lightweight. He's going to have a 5.5-inch reach advantage in this fight. Um, I don't know. It's two different things because if you're according to Tapology, he has a 5.5-inch reach advantage. According to the UFC, it's only a 2.5-inch reach advantage. So I'm not sure which one is correct. But he throws great front kicks up the middle, great high kicks, very good at using his range, uses a ton of kicks. Very accurate and fast. Has a nasty straight left hand. Also a really dangerous left hook from the southpaw stance. His takedown defense has held up so far on the regional scene. He's so tall that he's kind of hard to get down. He looked great, but he hasn't really had any trouble yet as a pro. So I'm curious to see, what'll happen if he runs into a little opposition. I'm curious how the takedown defense is going to hold up in the UFC as well, but I don't think he's going to have to worry about in this fight. Motta doesn't really fight that way. Motta likes to come out there and strike. So, but yeah, Tom's young. He's going to be improving constantly, and I think his kicks are going to play a big role in this fight as well as the knees. The knees in close for Tom. Neither of these guys have ever won a fight by submission, so like I said, I see this fight playing out on the feet for as long as it lasts. And he's taking on Nicholas Motta. He is 30 years old. He's 5'9" with a 70.5-inch reach, and he is 13-5 and 1-2 and 1 no contest in the UFC. And I think he is a plus 175 underdog. I gotta check real quick. Yeah, plus 175. Yeah, Motta's coming off what should have been a loss to Trey Ogden. He was getting his ass kicked that whole fight. And the ref stopped it, too early. Motta has 9 wins by knockout. Important note here is all of his losses have been by finish, 4 knockouts and 1 submission. For the most part, he either gets knocked out or gets the knockout, one or the other. He's exciting to watch, very fun. He does have good striking, very explosive and powerful, but he hasn't really looked good in the UFC yet. His only win was over a guy who never, got a win in the UFC. I think it was Cameron Van Camp. And Cameron was out there holding his chin just straight up in the air, for Motta to hit. I don't believe that Tom Nolan is going to make that same mistake here. We saw Motta taken down by Trey Ogden. Motta kept, running into the jab of Trey's as well. I mean, he was just really getting busted up with the jab. And if Trey Ogden could do that to Motta, I think Nolan definitely can as well. Tom is much better of a kickboxer than Trey Ogden is, in my opinion. I do expect Tom to get the win here. I'm thinking he's going to get the win by knockout. Motta's already been knocked out twice in the UFC. Yeah, man, I'm gonna take Tom to get the win by first round knockout. Sorry, my mic is acting crazy, making a static sound. Hopefully, y'all can't hear that. Next up, we got Felipe Buenas taking on Joshua Van, and Felipe is 34 years old, 5'7" with a 71-inch reach. He is 13-6, and this is going to be his UFC debut. We don't have the odds up for this one yet. Actually, most of the betting sites still have this fight listed as, Buenas versus Dennis Bondar. So I imagine that Joshua Van's going to wind up being a pretty sizable favorite. But yeah, Buenas he was supposed to make his debut a while back, and that fight fell out. I was curious going in, why he was getting to skip the Contender Series, being that he's 3-4 in his last 7 fights. He is coming off of an impressive knockout victory in LFA. He has 3 wins by knockout, 8 wins by submission. He's never been knocked out, but he has been submitted twice. He's gonna have gonna have a 6-inch reach advantage in this fight. Um, Nice boxing, hits very hard, very fast hands, throws good kicks to all levels, nice wheel kicks as well. Good jiu-jitsu, very aggressive off of his back. Has a few wins by a flying triangle, where he jumped the triangle and then switches to the armbar. Um, it's fun to watch, man. Should be an exciting fight while it lasts. It's just coming in. It's not a whole lot out there of Buenas fighting, super super high level competition and things like that. So it's kind of a it's kind of guesswork going in because I mean they all look great on the regional scene and stuff like that, but then they come in here and we're about to see him fight a legit fighter here in Joshua Van. So and Joshua Van is 22 years old, 5'5" with a 65-inch reach. He has 9-1 and 2-0 in the UFC. And yeah, change of opponent here. He's coming in on short notice. He's probably going to have about 3 weeks to train for this fight. Um, I was originally going to go with Buenas to win this fight over Bondar, but now that he's fighting Van, I'm not so sure about that, man. Van has an amazing boxing, great combinations, really fast hands, uses good pressure, throws a ton of volume. Um, he looks better every time we see him. We did see him get hurt in his last fight. He got caught with a good shot. Um, and he used his cardio and his pressure to come back and get the win and just really wear on his opponent. And Buena's best bet would be to get this fight to the ground and keep it there, but I'm just not sure he's going to be able to. Van has amazing head movement and good footwork. Uses his jab really well. Very dangerous in the pocket. Throws nice uppercuts. Good at using his feints to set up his strikes. I'm going to be taking Joshua Van to win by decision. The only way I really see this going the other way is if, just because of the short notice of it all, maybe he doesn't come in as prepared as he should have. But I think he's definitely got the advantage on the feet and the striking. And as long as he can keep it on the feet, he's going to do well. So I'll go with Van by decision. Next up, we got Weston Wilson taking on John Silva. Weston Wilson is 34 years old. He's 6'1" with a 73-inch reach. He is 16-8 and 0-1 in the UFC. And he's I think he's an even bigger underdog now, but he was a plus 525 underdog when I started doing my notes. And Weston's coming off a knockout loss in his debut to Joe Anderson Brito. I don't hold that against him. Brito's a beast, man. He's been running through everybody. He just beat JSP. But looking at Weston's career, it seems like throughout his career, it seems like he does well in the lower level organizations. But when he gets up to say some of the more talented organizations like the LFA, he went 0-3 in the LFA, or XMMA, he won a few fights and then he got knocked out in his last fight with them in that organization. He is very tall for the weight class. He's going to have a 4-inch reach advantage. He has a karate type striking style. 5 wins by knockout, 11 wins by submission. Dangerous submissions, well rounded. Takedown defense isn't the greatest. I've seen him taken down quite a bit in a lot of the tape I watched on him. He keeps his hands really low, so I'm surprised he hasn't been knocked out. He's only been knocked out 2 times. I'm surprised it doesn't happen more often. He has been submitted 4 times, so maybe submission awareness and defense are some of the weaker parts of his game. All his wins have been by finish. Fights mostly southpaw. He does get taken down quite a bit, man. And he does have a dangerous guillotine choke. Throws nice straight shots, good counter striking, very good at transitioning to the back. He is a decent grappler, even though he gets taken down a lot. He is a pretty decent grappler offensively. Using his really long limbs and stuff like that to throw up submissions or get back to his feet. Use them for sweeps and all that. Uses nice front kicks to the liver. No, he's fighting somebody here that's a little bit closer to his level, like a guy with, no UFC experience. So I'm curious to see how he does in this matchup. I'm not sure the way he likes to fight off of his back when he gets taken down rather than try to get back up is going to work out for him, in the UFC. But he does do that a lot. And if he can use his height and reach here and stay off the cage, you could possibly pull off the win here, maybe land a big shot or just beat Silva up from the outside, but not likely. And Silva is 27 years old, 5'7" with a 69-inch reach. He is 11-2, and this is going to be his UFC debut. And he's a minus 725 favorite. And all but one of this guy's wins have been by finish. 8 wins by knockout, 2 wins by submission. He's never been finished himself. He's coming off a unanimous decision win over a guy who was 11-0 on the Contender Series. He's on an 8-fight win streak right now. He trains at the Fighting Nerds camp. A lot of great fighters have been coming out of there the last few years. His last fight was his best win, before. Um, before his last fight, he never really fought, anybody with a good record or a big record. Um, and he hasn't really ever fought anybody with this much height and reach either. So that's something to think about. So this will be something new for him, man. But he has nice striking, very powerful, loads up a lot on his strikes, throws a lot of big jumping kicks and elbows and stuff like that. That does waste a lot of energy, but he seemed to have pretty good cardio. Very unorthodox. Um, but it's effective, man. Decent in and out footwork. Um, this line is kind of like so far out of hand that I kind of want to pick Wilson just because, because nobody should be this big of a favorite in their UFC debut. I do think that Silva wins this fight, but there's not really any money on, to be made betting on this line straight up. The props, aren't quite up yet, but maybe chase a knockout prop for Silva or something like that, if it's not too high. So I'll pick Silva to win by knockout round 2, but probably won't be betting on this fight. Next up, we got Farid Basharat taking on Taylor Lapilus. And this is a good matchmaking, man. This should be a pretty fun fight. Basharat is 26 years old. He's 5'8" with a 71-inch reach. He is 11-0 and 2-0 in the UFC, and he's a minus 170 favorite. Well, I caught him at a minus 170. He's actually quite a bit bigger favorite than that now. I got him last week when these lines first dropped at minus 170. I think he might be a minus 250 now, or minus 230, around that area. This guy is currently on a 15-fight win streak, if you include his amateur career anyway. 1 win by knockout, 6 wins by submission. We all know how good the Basharat brothers are. They are both very well-rounded, great jiu-jitsu, great boxing, good technique. He made his debut against Damon Blackshear, who I consider to be a very tough fighter. I don't care what anybody says. And then he submitted Clayton Rodriguez in his next fight fairly easily. His grappling and his wrestling is going to be his biggest, strongest skill set in this matchup. Great trips and body lock takedowns, great sweeps, good top pressure. Uses his jab very well, great calf kicks, very good at passing guard to side control, to kill the underhook. And when guys are trying to sweep, he's very good at killing the underhook. And uh, I'm having trouble explaining what I'm talking about. Anyways, great striking defense, doesn't take a lot of damage, nice head movement and footwork. Can't say enough good things for Farid here. He's great everywhere. Very good takedown defense. Shows 64% striking accuracy, which is pretty high compared to a lot of the fighters. He's 53% takedown accuracy, even though he's gotten everyone down. He's fought so far. 83% takedown defense, lands on average 5.20 strikes per minute, but only absorbs 2.34. Averages 3.5 takedowns per 15 minutes so far. It's a good number. Hasn't really shown any weaknesses yet, in the UFC, man. And he's fought some decently tough people so far, especially Blackshear. So, and he's taken on Taylor Lapilus. He is 31 years old, 5'6" with a 73-inch reach. He is 19-3 and 4-1 in the UFC, and he's a plus 145 underdog. And this guy is definitely no joke either. This is his second run in the UFC. He went 3-1 in the UFC back in like 2015 and 2016. And I'm not really sure why he left. Somebody had told me that he left to kind of like go pursue boxing or something. I don't really know if that's true. But then he came back and he got a win over Callan Loran. He went 7-1 after leaving the UFC with a knockout over Nate Maness being one of those wins. He has good dirty boxing in the clinch, great kickboxing type striking. Did give up a lot of takedowns before when he was in the UFC. Fights well from both stances. He's a sniper. He's very technical and accurate. Very good at using his lead hand to keep guys off of him. Very fast. Throws nice straight shots down the middle. Great elbows and knees in close. I think he has the advantage in the striking here for sure, and probably the power advantage on the feet. He throws great combinations, nice kicks to all levels. He's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage. 4 wins by knockout, 6 wins by submission. He did once again give up some takedowns in his last fight, on his return fight to the UFC. But he was able to kind of he was able to get back to his feet and not take a lot of damage. But I do think Basharat's going to be a way better wrestler slash grappler than Taylor's last opponent. Um, Way better striker as well. Honestly, I'm going to be taking Basharat to get the win here, um, with his takedowns and control time, and I think he's going to get a decision win since Taylor has never been submitted. So might be a pretty boring fight, but I think Basharat could get the win with his grappling. Next up, we got Marcus McGhee taking on Gaston Balonos. McGhee is 33 years old. He's 5'8" with a 69-inch reach. He is 8-1 and 2-1 or 2-0 in the UFC. Sorry, and minus 305 favorite. And yeah, McGee's looked really great in the UFC, but hasn't really fought the toughest guys yet so far. Journey Newsom and JP Buys. JP Buys has been knocked out by everybody uh, that's fought him. You just got to kind of have to keep that in mind when considering laying this big of a price on McGhee. But he is a great fighter. All his wins have been by finish, 7 knockouts, 1 submission. His only loss was by submission, which was a few years ago to Rafael Nascimento in LFA. But other than that, he's looked pretty great. Um, Very powerful, great kickboxing. His takedown defense has held up so far. I can't really say anything bad about this guy other than he hasn't fought just the greatest of competition yet, but he appears to be well-rounded. He may, in fact, be the better wrestler slash grappler in this matchup because I do believe that Bolanos has a kickboxing background. Marcus's cardio has looked pretty good on point, man. We haven't really seen him get to a third round yet, I don't think. Um, but it appears to be on point. And where was I at? He uses his jab very well. Good at finding his range. Fights southpaw mostly. Uses good pressure with the boxing. Shows 48% striking accuracy. Lands on average 3.42 strikes per minute, and he only absorbs 1.81. 78% striking defense, which is a pretty high number. Hasn't been taken down in the UFC yet. Has an average fight time of 4 minutes and 41 seconds. Hard to say who has the power advantage. Both these guys are heavy hitters. Both these guys have a lot of knockouts on their record. Um, and he's taking on Gaston Bolanos. He is 31 years old, 5'7" with a 69-inch reach. Both these guys have the same reach. He is 7-3 and 1-0 in the UFC, and he's a plus 255 underdog. Yeah, so he has a kickboxing and Muay Thai background. Before his last fight, all of his wins were by knockout. Never won a fight by submission, but has 6 knockouts on his record. He went 6-3 in Bellator before coming to the UFC. Obviously, his weak points are submission, awareness, and defense. He has been submitted twice. Obviously, he's a very talented, powerful striker, man. You can really tell he's got great technique. He's got some crazy spinning elbow attacks and spinning back fist knockouts on his record. Amazing Muay Thai, all around with his elbows and his knees and the clinch and everything. Hasn't fought the best of competition either, so far, at least as far as his MMA career goes. Obviously, he's fought a lot of high level strikers in kickboxing and Muay Thai. Seems to have worked on his takedown defense a good bit, but I still wouldn't say that his takedown defense is top notch. In his debut, he looked pretty good. Very fast hands, fast strikes. Has over 50 fights as a kickboxer. Um, Throws great combinations and good counters. Very good at finding the openings and creating angles. Um, Honestly, McGhee would be smart to try and get this fight to the ground just because Bolanos has, world class striking and great calf kicks. Um, McGhee is very good, but I just have trouble seeing him getting the better of Bolanos on the feet. Um, Bolanos has won fights just with leg kicks before. I think I don't know if it's 2 or 1 wins that he won by leg kicks. There's at least one win that was a TKO due to leg kicks. Um, but yeah, so McGhee doesn't typically go for takedowns, which honestly kind of tempts me to take Bolanos here. But I do think McGhee is the more well-rounded fighter here. Will he use it? I don't know. But Bolanos was giving up takedowns in his last fight, throwing sloppy spinning attacks that got him taken down. So I think McGhee will be able to take advantage, of those mistakes, and, and and take advantage of Bolanos' takedown defense and probably get a win by submission. Um, I would say maybe a late submission, maybe round 3. when balonos is very tired. Maybe he slips in a rear naked choke. But I would not be surprised at all if balonos landed a big shot and got the knockout either. But McGhee hasn't been knocked out yet, so I'll take McGhee to win by third round submission. A little rusty, man. It's only been like 2 weeks since I've done a video, and I feel like I'm out of it. Next up, we got Matthew Semelsberger taking on Preston Parsons. And Semelsberger is 31 years old. He's 6'1" with a 75-inch reach. He is 11-6 and 5-4 in the UFC, and he's a -130 favorite. And yeah, another really short notice opponent change here for Parsons. Semelsberger has 6 wins by knockout, 1 win by submission. No doubt he's the better striker and has the power advantage on the feet here. But one thing to keep in mind is that Semelsberger's takedown defense has cost him in the past, and that's what Parsons is good at. But if he can't get Semelsberger down, he's screwed. Semelsberger has dropped almost all of his opponents he's fought. He's had some nasty knockouts. He's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage here. He's fought the tougher competition for sure out of these two. He shows 58% takedown accuracy, 50% takedown defense. Lands and absorbs about the same amount at 4.06 and 4.36 strikes per minute. Averages 1 takedown per 15 minutes. Averages 1.5 knockdowns per 15 minutes. I'm taking Semelsberger to win this fight probably, man. It does worry me, though. It does worry me a little bit because it's short notice, and like we saw in the Jeremiah Wells fight, that Wells was able to get Semelsberger down, pretty much every round, and kind of get the control time and win the fight that way. But I wouldn't be surprised if Parson was able to get the takedowns, but I don't know. Parsons, 28 years old. He's 5'11" with a 72-inch reach. He's 10-4 and 1-2 in the UFC. He's a plus 110 underdog, and it's an interesting matchup, man. Especially on short notice. Parsons was preparing for a guy who, is also a wrestler just like him. Now he's switching to a striker. Parsons has 9 wins by submission. All but one of his wins have been by submission. The other win was by decision. He's never won a fight by knockout. Has been knocked out twice. And coming off a split decision loss to Trevin Giles, where I thought, Giles clearly won that fight pretty clearly. He got knocked out by Daniel Rodriguez in his debut. His only win was over Evan Elder, who was fighting up a weight class. So it's not a whole lot, really impressive going on, with Parsons in the UFC yet. He is a very explosive, strong guy, especially early in the fight. Parsons kind of gassed himself out in his last fight, just constantly going for takedowns, and he did have a ton of success on the regional scene, but it hasn't really been paying off in the UFC yet. He's very good at at flowing from one submission to another, pushes a tough pace. Kind of hasn't really outstruck anybody yet in the UFC, in my opinion. He shows 33% takedown accuracy. Has never been taken down in the UFC yet. Averages 3.11 takedowns per 15 minutes and lands and absorbs about the same amount at 4.14 and 3.76, pretty close. Yeah, I'm definitely going to be going with Semelsberger to win this fight. He's fought the tougher competition. He's got the more impressive wins. All he has to do is land one shot on Parsons, and Daniel Rodriguez can knock Parsons out. Semelsberger definitely can. Only thing that's scary about it is short notice. I would be jumping all over that -130 price line if it wasn't on, short notice. But I got Semelsberger to win by knockout, round 2. Next up, we got Andre Arlovski taking on Waldo Cortez Acosta, unfortunately. Sorry, I got to scroll through my notes, man. They switched all the fights around on me. Arlovski is 44 years old. He's almost 45 now. 6'3" with a 77-inch reach. He is 34-22 and 23-16 in the UFC, and he's a plus 301 underdog. And I love this guy, man. I'm such a big fan of his. I've been watching this guy fight for probably over 20 years since I was a kid. Nothing would make me happier than to see him win this fight. But I mean, face it. He either needs to be fighting, other guys that are about to retire or guys that haven't been able to get a win in the UFC, at this point in his career. His last 6 wins have been over guys, that have struggled to get wins in the UFC or never did get a win in the UFC or whatever. I mean, this is a really bad matchup for him, man. I hate seeing Andre get knocked out. It hurts my soul seeing a guy who was so great at one time losing to, Dontel Mays. It's depressing, man. It just kills me. Because back in the day, Arlovski would have murdered all these guys probably. Andre has good boxing. He's really switched up his style, and kind of started fighting smarter and safer, just laying back and countering, not rushing in and throwing any wild shots and stuff like that. Which is how he used to get all of his knockouts back in the day, is fighting that way. He does have 17 wins by knockout, 3 wins by submission, but he has been knocked out 12 times in his career. And unfortunately, it's a really bad matchup for him. And he's taking on Waldo Cortez Acosta. He is 32 years old, 6'4", with a 78-inch reach. He is 10-1 and 3-1 in the UFC, and he's a minus 401 favorite. And that, even though all the guys he has beaten in the UFC haven't really been impressive or anything, he has looked amazing. Has a boxing background, fast hands, good combinations, 5 wins by knockout, 1 win by submission. He's good at what he does, man, but he does just go out there and box. He doesn't do anything else. He doesn't really throw leg kicks or anything like that. And eventually that's going to catch up with him in the UFC, but here he's the younger guy, more powerful guy at this point in Andre's career, and I don't feel like I have to say much more. This is a bad matchup for Andre. I'm taking Costa to win by knockout, round 1. But yeah, I mean, it would be cool if Andre won this fight and then retired, but I don't really see it going his way, man, unfortunately. Next up, we got Phil Hawes taking on Bruno Vieira. Did I skip this fight? I think I did skip this fight earlier. This is another one, man, where I I don't think I have to say too much. I think this is pretty obviously um a good line to jump on. I caught Bruno Ferreira at a plus 110 underdog status. So, but Phil Hawes is 35 years old, 6 foot tall with a 77.5-inch reach. He is 12-5, and let's take a look at his UFC record. 10-5 and 4-3 in the UFC. Um, he has been knocked out quite a few times, man, and that's like he's a very good fighter, man. He's a good fighter, but he has all the skills. He's got great striking, big power, all that. Got a wrestling background. It's just the chin, man. He's been knocked out what 3 times, 3 times in the UFC, and then he was knocked out on the Contender Series by Julia Marquez. Um, I mean, it hasn't looked very good, man. He always does well until he gets caught, man, and then it's just like he just goes out. Like Aleskarov, I don't know if he landed like a knee, and it was like Hawes was still conscious for a little while, but like out on his feet, and then whenever he popped him with a little punch, he just went out. But Phil Hawes has all the skills, man. He's a good fighter. It's just his chin is really bad, and he's gonna have a 5.5-inch reach advantage here in this fight. Um, I just don't see this fight going well for him, man. uh, Bruno is 31 years old, 5'10", with a 72-inch reach. I mean, Hawes is going to be the way bigger guy. He is Bruno is 10-1 and 1-1 in the UFC. And I know he got knocked out in his last fight, but he was fighting a giant. A guy that was, how tall is that guy? Let's see what the size difference was on that. He is Not only did he fight the guy on super short notice, but he was fighting a guy that was 6'5", with a giant reach or whatever on super short notice. I don't hold it against him. And honestly, I'm not all that high on Bruno Ferreira either, but he does hit very hard. We saw that in his debut, knocking out Gregory Rodriguez. All he's got to do is land one punch. I mean, he's very fast. Um, I see Phil Hawes losing this fight by knockout, probably pretty quickly. because all Ferreira's got to do is hit him one time, man. So I thought that was a pretty obvious line to jump on. It's too bad that Ferreira's he's up to like a minus 120 now. I believe he's the favorite now, but it's still a good price if y'all want to jump on him. That's part of the reason I wanted to get this video out sooner, um, so I could tell y'all to get on that line. But I did catch him at a underdog price at plus 110. Next up, we got Ricky Simone taking on Mario Batista, and this is a tough fight for me, man. I went back and forth with myself on this fight for half the day the other day. Um, Ricky Simone is 31 years old. He's 5'6" with a 70-inch reach, and he is 20-4 and 8-3 in the UFC, and he's a minus 155 favorite. And yeah, Ricky's got a wrestling background. That's his strongest skill. Very explosive and powerful. Great double legs and trip takedowns. Dangerous jiu-jitsu. 6 wins by knockout and 4 wins by submission. He's coming off a knockout loss to Yadong Song. We kind of saw in that fight that if he can't get those takedowns, he does have a lot of trouble. We've seen him get knocked out twice in the UFC. Once by Uriah Faber back in the day. Very strong, with his body lock. This is an interesting matchup, man, because both these guys are actually pretty decent wrestlers. Um, the Jack Shore win for Ricky Simone was very impressive. But other than his 4 wins that he got before the Jack Shore win were kind of on guys that are on their way out or are about to retire at the time. So um, Ricky just really sticks to his opponents, man. He's constantly shooting for takedowns, constantly pressing them up against the cage. He hits very hard. His striking has improved quite a bit, but he doesn't really hold up on the feet with the top level strikers. We saw that in his last fight. He shows 44% striking accuracy, 63% striking defense, which is pretty good. Shows 50% takedown accuracy and 75% takedown defense. He absorbs and lands about the same amount per minute at 3 strikes, three and 3.23 strikes per minute. Averages 5.84 takedowns per 15 minutes, which is very impressive. He's going to have a 1-inch reach advantage in this fight. And he's taking on Mario Batista. He is 30 years old, 5'9" with a 69-inch reach. He is 13-2 and 7-2 in the UFC, and he's a plus 135 underdog. He's on a 5-fight win streak. Aside from getting caught by Trevin Jones, his only other loss was to Corey Sandhagen in his debut, which is no shame there. Um, I actually think Mario is the more well-rounded of these two fighters. I think he shines in a lot of the areas that Simon doesn't. But it's just that Simone's wrestling is so good that it may prevent Mario from being able to take advantage of those weak areas. Um, but I'm not so sure, man. Mario's coming off a win over Damon Blackshear, who I consider to be a very good fighter. Mario's jiu-jitsu is great, very good at transitioning to the back, very good sweeps, uses great forward pressure, pushes a really tough pace in general. I wish this was a 5-round fight. That'd be fun. Throws a lot of volume on the feet, very powerful and explosive, uses good in and out footwork, great takedown defense. Um, and really, it's really hard to keep him down if you do get him down. Blackshear was able to get him down twice, but he wasn't able to keep him down for any amount of time, really. Very aggressive off of his back, very good at getting to the cage when guys have a hold of his hips. Um, if I hadn't seen Simone's last fight, I probably would have picked him here with no questions asked. I think Mario could have some success if he stays moving forward and just really pressuring Simone, keeping him backing up. Um, Mario shows 52% striking accuracy, averages 3.72 takedowns per 15 minutes, or sorry, 2.72 takedowns per 15 minutes. Lands on average 5.32 strikes per minute and only absorbs 4.20. Well, that's actually kind of a high number, 4.20. um, Shows 57% takedown defense, which I'm not really sure that I agree with that because aside from Blackshear getting him down twice, he really hasn't been taken down a lot. He has 3 wins by knockout, 6 wins by submission. This is good matchmaking, man. This fight could go either way. I understand, I guess, why everybody's going with Simone because of the wrestling advantage, but I don't know. My gut is wanting me to go with Batista. I think Batista is the better striker. He uses a lot of feints and like false starts and is really good at creating angles. It's a tough pick, man. The lines are kind of reasonably priced for both sides. I mean, it's not very often that you could get either of these guys at these prices. Um, I think, man, I think I'm gonna go with a plus money on Batista, man. Um, Yeah, I'm gonna go with the plus money on Batista. Super confident in that? No, not at all. But man, I'll take him to win. I'll take him to win by decision. I'm not super confident in that at all. I understand why everybody's going with Simone, but I'm going with Batista. Next up, we got Ketlin Vieira taking on Macy Chiasson. And Vieira is 32 years old, 5'8", with a 68-inch reach. She is 14-3 and 8-3 in the UFC, and she's a minus 210 favorite. Uh, she's a great fighter, man. It's just that there are things that you see on her record that kind of make you question yourself when you're considering putting money on her. Like the loss to Yano Santos, that's a horrible look. She did get knocked out by Irene Aldana. A lot of people thought that she, should have lost the Holly Holm fight as well. Kind of just won that fight by holding Holly up against the cage and not really doing much. She's only won one fight in the UFC by finish, and it was submission. She fights well in the clinch. She controls her opponents up against the cage a lot. Fights in a traditional Muay Thai stance. Seems to be pretty powerful. Seems like she hits hard, but just no finishes in the UFC yet. Throws a lot of jabs. She'll double, triple it up at times. Throws good knees in close. In her last fight, she was timing her lead left hook very well. Um, and whenever she's not throwing her jab, she throws just more than just one. She throws more than just one shot at a time, which is something that all fighters should do, in my opinion. She follows them up with 3, 4 punches, at least 3 punch combinations at a time, because you're more likely to land, if you follow it up than just one shot at a time. Has great judo throws, great jujitsu. It's going to be an interesting matchup for her because she's used to being the bigger fighter. I think really considering who all she's fought, and she's going to be taking on kind of a giant here for this weight class. We saw in the Pennington fight that she cost herself that fight by holding her opponent up against the cage, not really doing enough damage. Um, Pennington was having Pennington was having a lot of success with her jab in that fight, just throwing straight shots down the middle. Um, Vieira throws a lot of hooks, winding punches and stuff like that. So if Chiasson can use her reach and throw long straight shots down the middle, she could have success here. Vieira shows 93% takedown defense and 45% takedown accuracy. Um, Absorbs more strikes than she lands at 3.92 and 3.04 per minute. Averages 1.5 takedowns per 15 minutes, 41% striking accuracy. Um, she's taking on Macy Chiasson. She is 32 years old, 5'11 with a 72-inch reach. She is 8-3 and 6-3 in the UFC, and she's a plus 170 underdog. Yeah, in the past, man, I haven't thought about Macy in the best way really, but watching the tape on her a lot here lately, she has had some impressive moments in her career. Man, she was on her way to beating Irene Aldana before. She was using her wrestling and before the up kick to the liver. Man, she had taken over after the first round and was dominating that fight, and it's just kind of a fluke kick that up kick that landed that put her out. Um, and Irene Aldana knocked out Ketlin Vieira, so it's MMA math. I know it doesn't matter, but Chiasson has 2 wins by knockout, 2 wins by submission, and she spent basically her whole career in the UFC. Man, she's just kind of been learning as she went. Um, had barely any fights before getting into the UFC. She has a win over Norma Dumont. That's impressive. Vieira has definitely fought the tougher competition out of these two, but Macy's going to have a 4-inch reach advantage, way taller. She's just huge for the weight class. She's really a featherweight that fights down at bantamweight. And she's going to have that advantage there in the size. She's constantly improving. She fought smart against Norma Dumont, man. She was switching stances a lot. She was using nice trip takedowns. Her footwork has improved a lot. Good at using her butterfly guard to get back to her feet. She could absolutely win this fight if the same Macy shows up that fought Norma Dumont. And that fight was up at 145 pounds, though. She's back down to 135 here, but um, she shows 64% takedown defense, 34% takedown accuracy, averages 2.17 takedowns per 15 minutes, which is more than Vieira, honestly, and uh, she absorbs less strikes than she. I cannot talk today. She absorbs uh, She absorbs 2.61 strikes per minute and lands 3.64 strikes per minute. Part of me wants Macy to win this fight. I kind of want to pick her. I think if this fight was up at 145, I would probably pick her. And but I'm going to take Vieira to win by decision. I think she has the grappling advantage and the power advantage as well. Um, I wouldn't be surprised if she struggled to get Chiasson down because she's so big. But um, yeah, I'm going to take Vieira to win by decision, like she always does. Um, Sorry I can't talk today. I guess I wrote that backwards on my notes and threw myself off when I was trying to say that. But I did get some really good news personally that I'll say at the end of this video. That way I'm not costing y'all time to listen to my personal stuff. But next up we got Jim Miller taking on Gabriel Benitez. Jim Miller is 40 years old, 5'8", with a 71-inch reach. He is 36-17 and 25-16 in the UFC. He's a plus 105 underdog. Jim's had a late resurgence in his career, man. He's won 4 of his last 5 fights, all 4 fights by finish. Um, Early in his career, man, he was kind of known for his jiu-jitsu. He has 7 wins by knockout, 19 wins by submission on his record, and he's been knocking out a lot of these young guys. That have been coming into the UFC, and they've been giving him really favorable matchups. For him, especially at this point in his career. He just kind of goes out and boxes and throws calf kicks now. Man, his cardio holds up pretty well when he fights that way. Honestly, with a record that big, he really hasn't been finished that many times. He's been knocked out twice and submitted 3 times out of over what 50 fights probably. And he's only lost to really tough guys, man. If we look at his record, yeah, he's got some losses on his in his UFC career, but I look at who he's lost to. I mean, Donald Cerrone, Benil Dariush, Dustin Poirier, Anthony Pettis, Francisco Trinaldo, Dan Hooker, Charles Oliveira, Vince Pichel, Joe Selecki, Alexander Hernandez. He's got a win over Roosevelt Roberts. He beat a lot of tough guys, man. Tiago Alves. Of course, that was all back in the day. But either way, man, he's only lost to really tough guys. And these guys have the same reach. Nobody has the advantage there. This is kind of a weird fight, man, and that these guys are at very different spots in their career. Um, I mean, before Benitez's last fight, everybody thought he was probably on his way out. And Miller's had kind of a late resurgence, man, where he's been fighting pretty dominantly in his last 5 fights. So it's kind of a hard pick, man. I understand why everybody is going with Miller on Tapology. His chin has held up way better than Benitez, but for whatever reason, Miller's still an underdog on the books. So I don't know if they're trying to trick everybody into going with Benitez. The power advantage may go to Miller. He's probably the better grappler, but he doesn't really fight that way anymore. He's going to go out there and box and just try to land that left hand, man. He's been putting out everybody with from the southpaw stance. He could definitely take a shot as well. We saw that in the Hernandez fight. This fight is definitely probably going to play out on the feet, man. I think Miller's fought the tougher competition. And he's taking on Gabriel Benitez. He is 35 years old, 5'8", with a 71-inch reach. He is 23-10 and 7-6 in the UFC. He's a minus 125 favorite. And Gabriel has all the skills, man. Just like Miller, he's got great boxing, very powerful. 9 wins by knockout, 10 wins by submission. He's well-rounded. We saw him make light work of a guy who didn't belong in the UFC last time out. So, yeah, it was a cool knockout, but not really all that impressive of a win, considering that Ontiveros never won a fight in the UFC. The thing recently that impressed me the most with Benitez was how he started the fight out with David Onama. I know he ended up getting knocked out, but he was really touching Onama up at the beginning of that fight before Onama turned it around and knocked him out. He throws fast combinations. He did get knocked out a few times at 145, so now he's gone back up to 155. He's been knocked out 4 times in the UFC, which is really what makes me, scared to pick him here. I do think Miller has the better cardio. Miller has looked way better as of recently. Benitez does have those nasty leg kicks. He does have the advantage there. He is younger. He may have success early, man, but I do think Miller will eventually catch him with that left hook and get the win by knockout. Originally, before watching the tape, I was kind of convinced that I was going to go with Benitez, but looking at the resumes, man, it's not even close. Miller's fought the way tougher competition. He's on a better run right now. Um, Benitez doesn't really have any super impressive wins in the UFC. I guess he did beat Jason Knight back in the day, maybe, but I'm going to be going with Miller to get the win by knockout round two. Next up, we got the co-main event. Atuis Nicolau is 31 years old, 5'6" with a 66-inch reach. He is 19-3-1 and 7-2 in the UFC, and he's a plus 173 underdog. And this is another tricky fight, man, because obviously these guys have fought before, and Nicolau got the split decision win. And he kind of did that by laying back and not really doing a whole lot, just kind of looking to counter strike, which is, what he usually does. That's usually how he fights. And he is a great fighter. The best thing about him is his well-roundedness, and in his ring IQ, he's very smart. Doesn't take unnecessary risk. Very technical and calculating. These two guys are complete opposites in the way that they fight. He looked better and better each time we've seen him up until Royval caught him with that knee. So, which is something that's a move that Manel Kape's good at as well. He's a very good, Nicolau's a very good counter fighter. He will frustrate guys so that they rush him, and then he'll counter them with a big shot. He doesn't have the highest volume of strikes, but he does make them count. He's very accurate. Has great ground and pound, hard calf kicks, 5 wins by knockout, 5 wins by submission. Very well rounded, good grappling. He did have some success in the first fight with takedowns in the first round, but after that, he wasn't able to get the fight down. One thing I didn't realize before is that all 3 of Nicolau's losses have been by knockout, so that's something to consider. He's very good, very hard to beat, very hard to pick against. 93% takedown defense, 45% takedown accuracy. Averages 1.48 takedowns per 15 minutes. Lands 3.66 strikes per minute and absorbs 3.14 per minute. And he has an average fight time of 11 minutes and 14 seconds. So all the numbers are pretty good on him, man. Very hard to pick against him, but he is coming off of a big knockout loss. So he's taking on Manel Kape. He is 30 years old. He's 5'5" with a 68-inch reach. He is 19-6 and 4-2 in the UFC. He's a minus 210 favorite. And I think very highly of Manel, man. I think we would know a lot more if it wasn't impossible for him to get a fight, man. He had a lot of opponents there I think he had 5 opponents like fall out in like a year and a half. Nobody wanted to fight him. At one point, he was supposed to fight Figueiredo and Cara France, and those fights didn't happen. And I guess they were just so desperate to get him a fight last time that he kind of fought a debuting fighter, and I don't know, man. It's just a mess with him. And he has 11 wins by knockout, 5 wins by submission on his record. He's the former Ryzen flyweight champion, lots of experience. He's fought all over the world, very athletic, very fast. We got to see his ground game, in the fight with David Dvorak. He seemed very dangerous off of his back and just very good at getting back to his feet and attacking submissions. He's very well rounded, very explosive, constantly throws up submissions from the bottom. Does prefer to counter usually. He'll kind of he'll draw out his opponent's movements and then, leap in with the big shots. In his first few fights in the UFC, him trying to do that kind of cost him because that's how he lost the decision to Nicolau and to Pantoja. But he has kind of worked on that. Now he puts out more volume and everything. He's looked a lot better, since in his last few fights in the UFC. Has a really nice Kimura. He likes to use it to sweep and finish fights as well. And whenever he has that Kimura grip, man, he really he either uses it to sweep, transition, into an arm bar or transition to the back whenever you pull guys over. He has really good head movement. Waits till his opponents set their feet and moves off so they can't get ready to throw a punch. Then pulls guys into his big shots. So he's good at setting up that flying knee as well. What else? Really fast hands, great combinations. We saw him hurt Nicolau in the second round, when they fought the first time. He was landing some big combinations, very fast, flurry of punches. He uses his uppercut very well, and I think he has the power advantage in this fight. I think he will. I think he'll know what to expect this time, from Nicolau. He does have the better striking. He just has to be careful when he enters the pocket. I I don't know if Manel gets a finish here, but I'll take him to win by decision. I think he's going to steal the rounds by landing big shots and hurting Nicolau. But that's a scary fight to bet on for sure, man. Next up, we got the main event: Magomed Ankalaev taking on Johnny Walker. And I mean, I didn't really care to see this fight again, but Ankalaev is 31 years old, 6'3", with a 75-inch reach. He is 18 1-1 and 9 1-1 in the UFC, and he's a minus 450 favorite. 9 wins by knockout, 1 win by submission. He was on his way to winning the fight the last time before the illegal knee fiasco. He switches stances a lot, gives guys a lot of different looks. Greco-Roman wrestling background, great front kicks up the middle. Nice nice straight left hand from the southpaw stance. Fights very smart and very safe. Doesn't take a lot of risk and kind of some of his fights can be kind of boring because of that. But I mean, at least he's not running out there and getting knocked out. Doesn't throw the most volume, but he doesn't really get hit either. So very good striking defense. At this point, if he wins this fight dominantly, he's definitely going to get a title shot, I would think. And he could definitely wrestle his way to victory here. But I would like to think he knows that he needs to get a big, knockout or some sort of finish, to really seal the deal and get that title shot. Um, but I mean, he's the better striker. Both these guys are very powerful. Ankalaev is definitely the better grappler as well. He's taking on Johnny Walker. He is 31 years old, 6'6" with an 82-inch reach. He is 21-7 and 7-4-1 in the UFC, and he's a plus 360 underdog. 16 wins by knockout, 3 wins by submission. I mean, he's a huge guy. He's going to have a 7-inch reach advantage. But other than that, I don't think he has any advantages in this fight. He does fight very safe now, as well, because he got knocked out a few times. Honestly, his best bet in this fight is probably to make it wild and try to land a big shot. But, nobody's knocked out Ankalaev yet, man. And I don't see a way for Walker to win this fight. Hopefully Ankalaev goes out there and wins dominantly, and because if he wins a boring decision and then is mad he didn't get a title shot, I mean he just needs to go out and get another big finish to secure that spot. I think I'll take it's a 5-round fight, man. I think I'll take Ankalaev to win by knockout in round 4. Sorry that I'm out of it today, guys. Let me pull up my bets. This card. So as far as my plays on this card, I've got a plus money play on Ferreira. It's plus 110. It's a 1-unit play. I call it basharat at a minus 170. That's a 1-unit play. And then I've got a 3-fight parlay that is Ankalaev, Acosta, and Tom Nolan, and that's a plus 120, and that's a half-unit play. And y'all notice a lot, usually usually I end up doubling up on my my most confident picks. So I'm considering putting a Bruno Ferreira and a Bruno Ferreira and Magomed Ankalaev parlay together. Then as far as my parlays go, my mic is messing up. As far as parlays go, I got a 5-fight parlay, which is Silva, Ankalaev, Ferreira, Acosta, and basharat. That's a plus 339. And then to that I added McGhee and Tom Nolan, and that's a plus 720 parlay. And then to that I added Batista and Jim Miller, and that's a 9-fight parlay. That's plus 3,799. Leave it up for a second. And then the last parlay, obviously there's some fights that aren't up yet, so I hadn't put them on this card yet. I hadn't put them in parlays, but and then to that I just added one fighter, and that was Manel Kopp. So that's a 10-fight parlay. That's plus 5,656. And that's it as far as my bets and stuff go, guys. I have to go back and listen to this before I put this video out because I might have messed up enough that I need to redo it. I don't know. But anyways, man. So if y'all been watching the channel a while, the people that have, may have heard this before, but um, about me. So I mean, it's growing up. I always wanted to be a fighter, man. I used to train, back when I was younger and stuff like that, and I ended up getting into drugs and stuff like that. So I was kind of in and out of, get clean, train for a few months, then mess up again, that kind of cycle. And got into, using and selling drugs and stuff, man. And I ended up getting into a lot of trouble and, ended up spending quite a while, um, quite a big part of my life, behind bars. And, but either way, man, I that kind of put an end to the dream of being a fighter, because by the time I got out, I was damn near 30 years old. So, but either way, man, the last 5 years, I've been good, got my life together, everything's great. I used some of the money that I won off one of these cards a few weeks back, and I hired a lawyer, and I was able to get off probation early. So I'm a free man for the first time in a very long time. So I'm happy about that. Um, yeah. So I mean, kind of a big deal for me, man. Um, it's a good thing that I ended the year with a few good cards, and ended up costing me about $1,500 to get it all done. But I ended up getting off probation um, about 4 years early. So all worked out well for me, man. Excited about that. Thank all you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe, and y'all have a good one, man. I'm out of here.